Hello, welcome to Holistically Speaking. I am Morella DeVoe, your host. Our mission with Holistically Speaking is to be the avenue through which the voices of holistic health reach you at the time you need it most. My guest today is a repeat guest, and she's actually been one of our most popular guests on YouTube. It's my friend, Brooke Moen. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Your show that we did last year, the same as what we're doing today, has gotten the most views of any of our shows on YouTube. So
that's great. I'm so happy so many people are interested.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see, like, oh, yep, that continues to be the most popular one.
That's great.
So last year we did a show about the Chinese medicine year of the wood horse, which was very interesting. So it made sense to do it again and talk about, okay, so it's the Chinese New Year. We'll probably need to talk again about what is Chinese astrology, just to give our viewers who may have no clue a sense of what that is. But I'm very curious to hear what the wood goat has in store for us.
Well, first of all, the Chinese New Year officially was February 19th.
So
we're about a month in.
Okay.
And what I always like to emphasize about this kind of thing is that we all have a feeling sense of this. So I often ask people to kind of tune in. Did you notice that things shifted in the last month, that things feel different? And you know, here in Vermont, of course, we feel, oh, the light is different, and we had a week or two that teased us and made us think that spring was coming.
It's torture to have it be back in the
torture.
teens.
So in that sense, we feel this newness, but there's also that we're marking a place in time, a place in a bigger cycle of things, that there's a change. And so we went from wood horse to wood goat, which there are some similarities, as you can hear, wood to wood, and some differences in the metaphor of horse to goat.
So can we lay the foundation a little bit just by sharing, because of course we know there's animals and there's elements and whatever, but if we could just kind of set that foundation for viewers, how does Chinese astrology work? Just kind of some of the basics so we can orient ourselves.
Yeah, what it's about. I really like to use the word Chinese cosmology instead of astrology. Astrology I often use just because cosmology is a word that people say, oh, I don't really know that I understand what that means and what's the difference. And the essential difference is just that astrology is really based on the planets and the stars, and Chinese cosmology is pointing to the fact that the Chinese were really looking to math and the repeating of phenomena, the way that patterns emerge over thousands and thousands of years, keeping track of those patterns, even noticing that there are patterns to our life and to our experience of being alive, writing those down, and then being able to look at those and see, oh, there really is this predictable way that things move. And by things, I should define what I mean by things. We're talking about how qi moves through time.
Okay.
And the word qi sounds very esoteric, and that's a myth that I like to dispel. People think, oh, qi is this nebulous stuff that moves through these channels, and acupuncturists put in needles and then that stuff moves. That's a real misunderstanding. Qi is a description of relationships. It's saying...
Oh, interesting. I've never heard, because I've heard qi described as energy. But
yeah, and it is energy, but it's much more tangible in some ways than we take it to be. Qi is sort of, you know, there's an engagement going on between you and me right now. There's qi to that. Or there's qi that has gathered in the form of this table. That's qi. Qi can be as simple as the way that you digest your lunch, or you know, the hair that stands up on the back of a dog when they get nervous. That's qi. It's a description of stuff moving through time is probably the best way we can think about it. And so the Chinese, probably starting 8,000 years ago, were looking at, oh, there's a way that stuff moves through time, and we can watch it and we can name it. And they started to look at you know, you can imagine over all these thousands of years so many different systems and ways of describing it, but the system that I studied and the thing I'm talking about when I talk about Chinese cosmology in the year of the wood goat is the system of the stems and the branches. 5 stems and 12 branches. And again, these are descriptions. So if chi is a description of phenomena, the 5 branches or the 5 elements, wood, fire, earth, metal, water, are descriptions of how chi moves. So we're getting more specific. We're moving from chi to then the 5 elements to then the 12 animals are metaphors based on what the Chinese had very much available to them, which was agrarian society, and animals as descriptions of then how the chi in each of those elements moves.
Right.
So for instance, we can
I was just
say,
going to ask, can you give us an example?
You can tell I like to talk about this because I'll just go and go. So for instance, we can say, okay, what is the wood element? What does that mean? We can look at spring as an example of the wood element, or birth, or the beginning of a cycle. That's representing that newness, that freshness.
Okay.
And then we say, okay, well, what represents wood? Well, the beginning of the year is wood. And in the Chinese calendar, the beginning of the year is more around February, depending on the year. It's based on the lunar calendar, so it's from moon to moon, basically.
So my question is, I'm hearing you say the beginning of the year is moon, or the beginning of a new cycle. Sorry, not moon, wood. The beginning of a new cycle is wood. Are there specific, as you're using wood to describe these things, what are the traits of wood or the characteristics of wood that would fit, that make it an appropriate element to describe?
Why is it wood? Yeah. So it's that freshness. It's if we think of wood, we can think of a tree coming up and out and blooming and blossoming, or when a baby's first born. Wood is really just a word that's the best translation from Chinese to describe, this, I think of it as like a little shoot that's trying to just push through the ground. It's expression just coming up, whereas fire is more the fruition or the movement forward, adolescence or summertime.
Yeah, something that's fully alive is fire.
It's actually moving forward, whereas wood is more just the essence or the inkling of it. We'll talk more about this as we get into wood goat, but I was thinking earlier, a great example of wood goat is that both Steve Jobs and Bill Gates were both born during the year of the wood goat.
Oh,
and if you think of what they're all about, it's innovation.
What year was that?
1955.
So how many years is a cycle of returning from the same kind of
60.
animal? 60 years.
Because there's 5 elements, and then there's 12 animals that are representing the yin and the yang of each of those elements.
Okay.
And so then if you take 12 times 5, that's 60. So we essentially have 60 images that are cycling through time and making bigger cycles of 120.
I guess I could have done the math too. You said 1955.
Well, no, I mean,
how many years is that? So it's 60-year cycles. So this year is very much like 1955 then.
Exactly.
That sort of thing.
And so I bring those two people up as, that kind of innovation for the good of all. That's a beautiful example of wood goat. But innovation is such a wood quality. It's really, it's not necessarily the carrying forward. Probably they've had all kinds of other people that represented more that fire element of making it happen, or the earth element of setting it up and making it stable and steady, kind of like midlife, or the end of the summer before the harvest. But wood is really just all the creativity, all the ideas and the freshness.
So that would lead me to think that babies born this year have the potential to be great idea starters, idea generators, innovators, kind of a thing.
Yes, absolutely. Freshness.
So those of us who've been around for a while, what does that do for us?
Do you mean in terms of this year?
Yeah, like what does the wood goat then do for the rest of us?
Yeah, I mean, so basically what we're talking about is what's available. It's my teacher used to say that it's sort of like life is this big buffet, and we're all getting to partake of different dishes on the buffet. And some years there's more of one dish available than other years, and some characters will have more ability to digest this year's particular dish than another year. So it's kind of like, what exactly is digestible this year? And, again, it comes back to wood is that freshness, and then goat is really about social justice. It's about the herd. And again, this isn't arbitrary. This isn't because I say it's this way.
Right.
It's because goat is actually pointing to, well, what are goats like? What does that represent? And I always tell people to go and really watch the animal, watch baby goats. I've been putting up YouTubes and pictures and things of baby goats, and if you watch them, it's sort of this marrying of freshness and strength. When baby goats first come out, they're able to walk right away and climb and dance around, and so it's freshness and stability.
So what are you're saying freshness, strength, and stability. So can you tell us more about what Chinese cosmology extracts of the characteristics of a goat that make it applicable, or tell us anything about what this year might be about?
Yeah, so my teacher has talked a lot about the opportunity for touching back into our true humanity, and again, this idea of the herd, that the herd is really important. So last year with the wood horse, we had this freshness and we had this energy. Baby horses are similar, that they're sort of wobbling around, but they're wanting to run forward, but more individualistic.
Right.
This year, the goat is really about how can we make things beautiful, how can we make things workable for the good of everyone.
Yeah.
So that's really what's available to all of us this year, is how can we think more about our own humanity, and how does that benefit each other?
And you're making me think of collaboration, that maybe the energy of this year has more to do with fostering collaboration. I can imagine like the goats all together and kind of doing things together, as opposed to, as you were saying, the horse is just kind of more on its own, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely collaboration is a good word.
And so what makes the wood, I don't know if I'm jumping the gun, but how is the wood goat different than, say, a water goat or a
that's a good question.
earth, or I don't know if there's earth, but
so all goats will have this importance put on the herd and on the collective, and on this sort of making things, that social justice is really, I think, a lot about those words for the goat. But wood has this freshness, so it's, when we add innocence to the herd, it gives this fresh ability to sort of really look at what matters, what's our basic humanity. If you think about the conversations you have with children, right? And they're sort of like, oh, Mom, why is she so fat? That's not coming from an insult, it's coming from this genuine curiosity, this sort of, I want to say equanimity, or what's the word I'm looking for? Equality is not quite the right word. I think maybe equanimity. Okay. That sort of we all have a right to be here no matter what. And wow, isn't it interesting that we're all different, but it doesn't matter because there's space for everyone. And we want to make the world a little bit better and easier place for all of us. And that this is the wellspring of true compassion. The compassion isn't sentimental. It's not feeling sorry for. It's more, oh, we're all in this situation together. I know what that's like, so I know what it's like to be you. We're actually not that different. Fat, skinny, old, young, big, small. Right. That's a very wood quality for goat.
Interesting. So everything that you're saying is sounding to me as though it's very, it's kind of hopeful for this year, and maybe for, social justice, or, kind of correcting some of the imbalances in humanity.
It's very hopeful. I think that freshness is really important, and again, we all feel that so much in the spring here in Vermont, right? How important it is to see, oh, it's possible to start over. Right. What a relief. And we had a sense of this last year because of that wood quality, but again, this year it's based more on the greater good, which is more connective and more relational. And again, some characters will have an easier time with that than others. Right. But on a basic human level, we all want to be more relational.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you're saying all of this because recently I've been hearing similar messages, not related at all to Chinese cosmology. Messages around, think about how your work impacts the whole, or just like kind of those words surfacing. And so, what is it fair to say that as people are listening to this, that maybe a takeaway is to take that community aspect of the wood goat, that freshness, that good for the whole kind of quality, and maybe think of how do I rethink my work, I don't know. Is that something you would
Absolutely
suggest?
Absolutely. I think it's a great chance in terms of that renewal and refreshing is to step back and say, what really matters to me? And are my relationships, is my work, are all the aspects of my life sort of aligned in that way? The goat energy is known a lot for, like I said, aesthetics and sort of redecorating and this and that, but not from vanity, more from a sense of, okay, how can I make the world a more beautiful place, and how can I align the way things look on the outside with what matters on the inside? And that marrying of those two things, I think, always makes each aspect of our lives a little more healthy.
Yeah. So a little while ago, you said something about the chi of the wood goat kind of affects different people in different ways. So are there any specific, let's call them animals? So I think, what am I? I think I'm an ox.
You're an ox.
I'm an ox.
Yes, you are, my dear.
I know. So, I think
strong and reliable.
Excellent. Yes, that's true. But say the ox versus the horse versus another goat. I would imagine that other goats would feel very at home in a year like this year, right? So who are the ones who maybe this energy favors and who might be challenged?
Well, I think the basic starting point is that, again, goats are this sort of herd animal. So any of the animals that tend to be more herd-oriented, or, there are trines, sort of animals that get along with each other a little bit better than others. And there's a domestic trine. The rabbit, the goat, and the pig are the domestic trine. And they are all very much concerned with the other. They're very relational. They're very herd-oriented. And so those three it's not that they'll have a better or a worse year, it's just that the chi will feel a little more familiar this year for them. And then those of us, like oxes or tigers like me, or who else, horses, are a little more independent. It's, we have a strength that maybe those other characters don't always have. But the Confucians always thought that strength wasn't always necessarily the best quality, because we can be too strong and able and willing to do everything on our own. And so that will feel awkward this year. So we're called to really come back to our humanity and explore, am I capable of teamwork? What does that look like? And the recommendation is always not to fight or push. If it's not available or it's harder for you, you just pull back and watch a little. It's sort of like, I could really feel this, that last year, in this wood horse year, being a tiger, the chi was much more familiar to me. Wood tiger, wood horse. And so a lot of people were looking to lean on me for the first time in years. I was really leaning on people in other years, and last year I could just feel it. I was the one that could provide the answers and provide the support, and I've already felt that shift in the last month, that, now things are feeling a little more awkward to me, and I need to go back to mentors and friends and kind of ask the rabbits and the pigs and the goats, how do I navigate this exactly? And the beauty is that there's always a chance in the cycle for all of us to provide that for each other.
I'm curious because I've been reading a few kind of Western astrology articles recently, and talking about how, especially this spring and right now, there's a lot of like Aries and Mars energy, and a lot of energy for moving forward and taking action. And I have felt like that's something I've felt this last month, like just a push to like, okay, I'm just like ready to like. So how does that correlate to the Chinese cosmology?
Yeah, there's a few different things I think about. I've been thinking about that too because I've been so feeling it, and my patients have been feeling it, and I teach a Qigong class, which is kind of like Tai Chi, and so every Wednesday we meet and we talk about what we've been noticing, and some of that is local. I think, here we come out from the deepest, most still point of winter that you could possibly feel. The lake is completely frozen, right? To, okay, the light changes, the air changes, we have a few warm days, all of a sudden we want to move, but that ice hasn't cracked yet. Really when the ice cracks and the river or the lake moves is when you're actually going to be able to move forward. So we feel a little tension about that right now. Again, in the cycle of things, everywhere will feel that, but in Vermont we really feel that. Yeah. But more on the cosmology level, I think it's so much, particularly this year, about how this image of the baby goat that comes right out and days later can run and jump and twist, that kind of thing. Right. It's the wood goat energy is available right away this year. So that means in the last month, we already feel that change just from the last few months. So that's the way I would say that it's the most correlated.
Yeah. And it's so funny because I'm feeling, just taking in the energy of the goat versus, say, the horse, I'm feeling like I see goats as jumpy, and you can see them like hopping, and that's a little bit of the energy that I feel. It's like, that's just
Yeah, and again, it depends on your character, right? For you and me, who tend to be more kind of plowing forward, that's going to feel a little and for more yin type of characters, like I said, the rabbit or the goat or the pig, that sort of feels natural. So it doesn't. I'm assuming that jumpiness you're talking about is almost like a little anxious or a little chaotic. It won't feel as chaotic to them. It'll feel more, oh, okay, I can go along with this.
So we've already established that you and me, so ox and tiger, are going to feel a little challenged or uncomfortable, maybe not so at ease with this wood goat energy. Who else might be challenged?
Like I said, horses will feel this shift from when they were, they probably felt the relief that I as a tiger felt last year, that, okay, finally, I can just run forward. I can do it all. And it's just not as available, so they may be feeling a little awkward right now.
Okay. So what suggestions would you have for, not just for the people who feel challenged by it, but so if we have, another 5 or 6 minutes, what could we share with viewers in terms of, here are some things you may want to think of for this year?
Well, if I think of some of the basic categories of our lives, if we think about business, it's really going to be about innovation and community. Green business, that kind of thing. That's been the big thing in the last 10 or so years, but this year, that's really where it shines. Not new more than old, that kind of thing. Right. In terms of relationships, it's about kids, it's about community, maybe less about the romantic one-on-one kind of thing. Definitely more about relationship than last year, but really kids and community, again, that's where the chi is. And what else? Health. Again, the freshness aspect, time to find a new practitioner, time to sort of get on a new plan or start something new. The spring cleanse kind of thing is perfect, in the coming month or two.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect. I want to be sure to show our viewers how to find you. So the way to find Brooke is through her website, and if we could pull up that address, it's www.brookemoenacupuncture.com. Obviously, you can book Chinese astrology sessions with Brooke, but obviously you have an acupuncture practice. So brookemoenacupuncture.com is the way to get in touch with Brooke. So how does, what can someone expect from a private Chinese astrology or cosmology session with you?
Yeah, these days I'm really using it more to inform me about my patients in Chinese medicine.
Okay.
When I do acupuncture and herbal prescription. But I certainly do consultations, and basically we spend an hour and a half and we look at what's essentially the roadmap of someone's expression in this lifetime, who they are and what their life's about.
So that's interesting. You're saying you use the framework of the cosmology to inform your work for acupuncture with patients?
Definitely.
So can you give us a taste of what that might be?
Sure. So if I have a rooster in, roosters are of the metal element, so they're very discerning and analytical and that kind of thing. So I'll present things very straightforward. I'll give them the facts. You know, why...
Sounds like my dad must be a rooster.
You know, why I'm the expert, why they should listen to me, and I give them a very specific protocol. Whereas if I get a rabbit in, a rabbit needs to trust you. They need to feel that you love them and you have their best interest at heart. So I'll sort of say, oh, that must be really hard for you. You know, what do you think you need? And we build a relationship. They don't care about the facts. It's not about that. It's about, can I trust this person? Do they have my best interests?
That's so interesting. And so then with that also in mind, are there specific conditions, ailments that might afflict one group of animals more than others?
Definitely. Yeah, there's some that are prone to, you know, their health problems are more going to come from their nerves. Others, it'll be because they overwork too much. And there's a lot in a personal chart that we can see too. Some things are ancestral, some things are just about diet and lifestyle, and we can get a lot of that information from a personal reading. So sometimes I do recommend that if we've hit a place where we can't get any further with the medicine itself, I say, okay, let's look at what else is going on here, and if there's some things you can do in your life or with your ancestry that can maybe help move this along.
That's so interesting. So any kind of final thoughts about this year or about Chinese cosmology or taking care of ourselves before we wrap up?
Yeah, I'd say just that if any of this feels confusing at all to anyone, to really just start watching the cycles of time and your own body and your own experience and seeing what those elements look like in our own life, because I think we all recognize this information because it's actually what we are.
Right.
And it's a beautiful way to open up your perspective to how the world is actually working rather than how we've been taught that it works. It's the most natural thing there is.
Right, to just kind of observe observe your own body and observe the cycles of nature and kind of flow with that.
Yeah, and just really spending this year thinking about how to come back to our basic humanity. Again, what matters and how we can be more available to others and how that nourishes us right back.
Yeah, you're really making me think of connectedness and collaboration. And like you said, for those of us oxes or horses or, you know, I am very independent and I do feel like I can just go and get a lot done on my own, but
which is a strength, and it's beautiful that other people can rely on you for that.
Right.
But this year it's emphasizing the part where other people can rely on you.
Yeah.
Not just that you can do it.
Right. Yeah, and it does feel awkward to say, okay, how do I collaborate? How does this work? How do I ask for help? It does feel very awkward.
Yeah. So watch a goat. They'll show you.
I'm gonna have to start looking for goats.
Yeah, look for some goats this year.
Yeah.
They're going to show us all how to do it.
Interesting. So collaboration, looking at what matters, asking yourself what really matters to you, kind of looking at our humanity.
Freshness, innovation.
Starting new projects, maybe?
Starting new, absolutely.
Maybe starting new projects where you're collaborating with people.
There you go. There you go. You're getting it, Ox.
Excellent.
And
maybe a spring cleanse
absolutely.
for the wood grow. Great.
That would be great. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Brooke. It was such a
you,
pleasure.
Laura.
It's so fun to have you again. I'm curious again to come see you.
Yeah, we always have a lot to talk about.
Great. Well, thank you so much for watching. Please join me next week. We're going to be talking about electromagnetic frequencies. So I'm really curious about what that will be about. And I'll see you next time.